Hello, loony listeners. This is episode 2 of Into the Night, a Moon Knight podcast. Coming from the Overvoid, I'm one of your hosts, Ray.
I'm your other host, Connor. This week, it's all Defenders hype. Deadpool kills the Marvel Universe again. Marvel Team Up Annual 4, Issue 2 of Lemire's run. So grab 8 issues, sit back, relax, and get your conchu on.
Alright, loony listeners, we are back, episode 2, and this is a bit of a special week. It's Defenders week by the time this podcast comes out. Connor, are you looking forward to the Defenders?
What's it been, 2 years in the making now? I couldn't be more excited. I think this will just be maybe even the best out of the 5 series we've got so far. Just couldn't be more excited. I'm just there.
I'm definitely... I just can't wait myself. Yeah, it has been a big build up. Started all the way from Daredevil, two of the seasons of Daredevil, and then we've got Jessica Jones, Luke Cage, Iron Fist. It's just a big culmination. So we're really looking forward to it. From a Moon Knight point of view, there's been a lot of talk of Moon Knight actually being involved in Netflix. Not necessarily the Defenders coming up this week. But there's been a lot of speculation, Connor, I think, with Moon Knight possibly popping up in the near future.
Yeah, well, Ray's sent me some links. I'll claim no investigative claims over this information. But yeah, there's been some articles popping up about what people want and things to read into for Defenders. And a few of them have our good friend Moon Knight, specifically Marvel Knights and Shadowland, which... maybe not feeling so much Marvel Knights just yet, but definitely I'm feeling a Shadowland influence on Defenders coming up.
Yeah, there's definitely a Shadowland vibe, if not for the fact that we've got the Hand predominantly as the enemy. So, I guess we'll see come Friday the 18th what the Defenders will be like. But on the news front, it's been pretty lean the last few weeks with Moon Knight stuff. So Connor and I have kind of dug up the latest articles, and they are more Defenders related. So hence we thought we'd make this a Defenders episode. The first one was a recommendation for 9 comics to read, as Connor mentioned, to prep yourself for the Defenders. So first off on that list was Shadowland, which we mentioned. Moon Knight had I thought a pretty good run in that, because his solo mini series off that main arc was quite interesting.
Yeah, I think I revisited Shadowland about a year ago, and I think out of all of them, that's probably the best, even better than the main series. So I wouldn't mind taking a few cues from that.
Yeah, I think apart from Shang-Chi as well, just personally, and just seeing Daredevil as the badass, which seems to be a recurring theme. Look, we've got Captain America now in Secret Empire. Apart from that, I think Moon Knight was by far the most interesting. We had some big things happen in that Moon Knight limited series. Like one, for instance, we were talking off air about Marlene and her being pregnant, which is one of the big things in the Moon Knight canon, and she actually loses her child through Randall Spector, and this all happens in Shadowland as well.
Yeah, we were even speculating on that possibly tying into their crazy runs in the family for Legacy. So
definitely.
On the Defenders front, when it comes to Moon Knight, as much as I'd love to have him in there, I'm not feeling a full appearance, possibly. I think the fact these 8 episodes will cover a whole 24 hours, 48 hours?
That's right, yeah, it's a very short time span, isn't it?
Let me just get that up. Yeah, I'm thinking we'll get a little bit of a hint, whether it be a Spectre Corps building or a Gina's Diner, maybe even a Crescent Dart in the background, as like the animated shows used to do, where you'd watch an episode of X-Men, the animated series, and Punisher's rifle would be in the background somewhere, aiming.
I think possibly there's definitely potential for Gina's Diner, and I had a little conversation with Connor and some others about possibly seeing Spectacle in Doctor Strange, which I watched last night, but that's certainly doable. But just having even just the branding or the logo somewhere in the background. Also, Jake Lockley, we've mentioned before, being a cab driver, that'd be great. Even if uncredited, you see a guy with a dodgy moustache and an handicap hat on, you get a lot of speculators going, "Hey, that's Moon Knight." But I agree. I think 48 hours or however long the 8-episode time span is going to be, I think there's just not enough time there to fully introduce Moon Knight in there. I think fans want to see him in there, but I think realistically would only get just a small Easter egg at best.
Yeah, and I mean that is a bit unfortunate, but I think Defenders as a show is kind of how MCU has their phases. This is kind of the end of the first era, moving on to the next. I feel like there'll be a big status quo jump at the end of Defenders Season 1 that maybe sees, like, maybe even there we see that little glimpse of Moon Knight, or because I mean, likewise, I don't think we'll see the Punisher in Defenders all that much until possibly the final episode, but I think there'll be teasers of what we can expect.
Yeah, do you think we'll see the Punisher in the Defenders? I have just reading some articles online and people talking about it, I have an impression that he's kind of almost guaranteed that he'll show up. Do you get that vibe, or
no? Like,
okay,
that's why I was so sort of kind of not seeing Moon Knight. I didn't think we'd even see Punisher as well.
Okay,
so, I mean, I suppose he's got old beef with the Hand when it comes to the end of Season 2.
And he's got the series coming out in October, November, so maybe it will just be one of those post-cred things like we saw with Luke Cage popping up. When was that? At the end of either Daredevil Season 2 or at the end of Jessica Jones? I can't remember. Yeah. Well, it's potentially there, but so these... Sorry, Looney's going back to it. This article with the 9 comic books to kind of get you primed for Defenders. The first one was Shadowland, which was an obvious as a given. The second one goes into Marvel Knights, so numbers 1 to 15, and I do believe Moon Knight actually appears more so. What is it, from 5? I think 5 onwards.
Yeah, and a bigger role in the latter half of that as well.
Yeah. Have you read these ones, Connor, as well?
Yeah, I think Marvel Knights was actually maybe even the first appearance of Moon Knight I read that wasn't his own ongoing series. And the Punisher, whether we see him or not in the Defenders, is a pretty integral part to Moon Knight, because I'm pretty sure that's how we'll see him laced in. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if he makes his appearance in Punisher, possibly.
He's definitely... The Punisher definitely is like a connecting tissue between the characters. Obviously, the relationship the Punisher has with Daredevil is kind of well documented. They're kind of both chalk and cheese, and also the fact that the Punisher, to me, is similar to the Hulk. Obviously, a bit of an anti-hero. Can be seen as being doing good, but he really does rub the other heroes up the wrong way. So, Marvel Knights showcased the Defenders in it. So you've got not only Moon Knight and the Punisher, but there was Daredevil in there. There was Iron Fist, I believe. Black Widow's in it as well. Even Shang-Chi and Cloak and Dagger. So there's a tentative connection there with the Defenders again through Marvel Knights, but it's one of the recommended reads to kind of get you into the Defenders. Again, hopefully with Moon Knight being there, it's kind of like an indirect way of saying that we're hoping Moon Knight will be in Netflix shortly too.
And then if we move second onto that list, we have Immortal Iron Fist, issues 7 to 13, which, I mean, I don't actually remember that much of Immortal Iron Fist. Like, I remember a lot of the first arc and how much I loved that.
Yeah, I'm rereading it now as well. I've got the first half of the complete collection, so Volume 1. it's just great. It's one of those things that you can kind of reread over and over again. So I slowly went through my Matt Fraction's Hawkeye and just going through Iron Fist now as well. And of course, this is an obvious connection to get you prepped for the Defenders. These particular issues 7 to 13 of Immortal Iron Fist, I don't believe features Moon Knight at all, but it's still kind of connected to him through the Defenders. Right after that, we have Alias Volume 1, which was a very, very popular run by Brian Michael Bendis and Michael Gaydos. It was a Max series as well. I actually haven't read this. Have you read this, Connor?
Oh yeah, it's real good Bendis. Like, this is probably his glory days when this was coming out. So, just a general reread, and a lot of this wasn't so much used in the first Jessica Jones season. What was taken from Alias was basically the last 2 volumes of the series, so I think they're counting on a bit of that first arc to be in Defenders, the issues 1 to 9.
Oh, okay. And what do you remember what mainly happens in 1 to 9?
Well, I think it was a lot of Jessica Jones sort of investigating parts of the Marvel Universe, so a lot of the issues were having to find up maybe like dirts on some heroes or something connected to the heroes that she would go deep undercover to find out about. Like the Purple Man, I think, has a few references in these, but his arc's the last volume of that series, I think.
Okay. And we'll see anyway later on. I think one of our comics that we're going to do for this Defenders special, which is Marvel Team Up Annual Number 4, features the Purple Man, and we'll see that he's different still as well to the TV iteration.
Very suave.
Very suave. But with Alias, again, no real more of a connection to the Defenders. Nothing too much on Moon Knight there, other than, look, Bendis did a Moon Knight run as well, so you can kind of chalk that up to a bit of a connection. The next one we have is Daredevil issues 190 to 191. So this has much to do with Elektra, and again, look, very little on Moon Knight. Again, Connor, have you read this by any chance?
Was this the Frank Miller arc? Like, Elektra returning in that, or was that post Frank Miller?
Oh yeah, I'm not too sure on this one actually. I'm just having a quick look at the blurb here. It's definitely, I don't know, it definitely looks like his kind of sort of era, but I'm not too sure. Elektra seems to come back again and again, so I kind of lose track.
Yeah, this is very much, this was the first resurrection of Elektra out of the possibly 200s in the comics. So yeah, this was a very influential arc for Daredevil, and I can imagine a lot of this in Defenders, just because the death of Elektra basically destroyed Daredevil in those Frank Miller issues, and then her return was just as gut-punching. Yeah,
and I see here as well, it's features Stone, who we saw in the early episodes of Daredevil, only like one episode, I think it was episode 7 of season 1. Just the back of him, you see him and Stick talking. Apparently he features in these issues as well, so I think there's a connection there with the Chased, which Stick is a part of, and which is kind of like the immortal enemy of the Hand.
Yeah, I imagine that very much going to be in Defenders. And then next on the list we have Power Man and Iron Fist, 50 to 54.
A very classic cover. I think I've seen that cover from the Essential Collection. They've used that a lot for the collected comics. So this has got the classic pair of Chris Claremont and John Byrne. Again, look, hey, there's no real connection to Moon Knight here, but it would be a good primer for the Netflix show coming up.
Yeah, and this was that was the first big jump into the new series, Power Man and Iron Fist. That's technically the issue 1, because 48 and 49 were Power Man, just called.
Oh wow.
Power Man. I'm pretty sure, either that or it was called Luke Cage, Hero for Hire. One of the two, but
yeah, right.
50 was where it got the tagline and Iron Fist.
So Iron Fist actually, finally kind of gets a bit of a a bit of a part of the spotlight, I guess, which is good.
Yeah, well, at the time it was Power Man was about to be cancelled at issue 50, and Iron Fist was about to be cancelled issue 18, so they just smushed them together into one run.
And it proved to be quite successful. I must assume, because they're still here now. It's such a different. They're such a contrasting pair. If you think about it, it's just they're very. You wouldn't match them, would you?
Yeah, I mean, I have no idea where they got the idea to just. Smush them together to save them from cancellation, but what do these have in common? It's like pairing up Moon Knight and Spider-Man for their 50-issue run.
Yeah, well, these two, Luke Cage is very much the blaxploitation, and and Iron Fist more leaning towards that kung fu era, I guess, with Bruce Lee being quite popular in the media at that time, and then cashing in with that and Deadly Hands. What is it? Master of Kung Fu. So with Shang-Chi, he had an early comic run as well, and I think they tried to cash in on the martial arts kind of craze at that time, and rightly, as you say, they smushed them together. Both of them probably were failing, but together I guess they kind of consolidated a particular fan base, or actually combined the fan base together.
And then next up we have the all-new Defenders run, which Bendis has confirmed Moon Knight will be appearing in.
Oh, has he? Fantastic.
Yeah.
I'm really enjoying this run. I don't know about you. It's it gets kind of mixed reviews, but look, maybe I'm just a sucker for something that's connected to the TV show. But this is a lot of fun, and the art is David Marquez is brilliant in this.
Yeah, I sadly trade weighted it, but I think I'll be catching up just to get that Moon Knight issue, because the latest issue was Punisher.
Yes,
which is confirmed, and yeah, I'm pretty sure Moon Knight's supposed to be the next.
Oh, I wouldn't doubt it as well.
Off appearing next.
I think Bendis really loves his street level characters, and Connor, it is definitely trade worthy. So I'm just getting the Oh no, I'm not actually. I'm getting the floppies. I was about to say I just get the digitals, but I'd be keen to get the trade once it comes out. It's just the art. I mean, you just can't go past it, and the writing's good so far. I like how Bendis has written in Frank Castle in there. There's a bit of humour still. I know there's one point in it that one of our friends, Rebecca, is not too keen on what happens to Iron Fist, I think, in the latest issue, but yeah.
Cool, okay.
But, sorry?
Bendis never been known to treat Iron Fist well.
Yeah, he seems to have a bit of a grudge, I guess. He loves Jessica Jones, obviously, and I think he's got a little connection with, or an affinity with Daredevil. But this is a great series. Obviously, it's a direct reference to the TV show. So if out of all these books you just go for the 2017 Defenders, you're bound to be well prepared for the show coming on the 18th of August.
And then next up we have a book I've neither read nor heard of. Daredevil Dark Knights, issue 6 to 8.
I can't say I've seen the cover or heard of this. There have been many kind of titles of Dark Nights or Dark Days or, End of Days, but I'm quite unfamiliar with this. And just quickly skimming through this article, written by Jimmy Palmiotti, he actually used to write a bit of The Punisher in the 90s, I know. And it says you get some cameos by Colleen Wing, along with Misty Knight. So it's a bit of a Daughters of the Dragon kind of spin there. But which I hope, actually, incidentally, for the TV show, I am hoping there's some synergy there between Jessica Henwick, is it? And Henwick. And, oh my gosh, Simone Missick? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm really hoping that there's some synergy there. People are shouting out for Daughters of the Dragon just as much as for Moon Knight, so it'll be great to see. And then after that, another kind of recent title that they've suggested is Power Man and Iron Fist, the 2016 run by David F. Walker. Now this was a great run, I thought. The art was polarizing for a lot of people because it's quite different, but Sanford Green, I think, he really added a lot of zing to this series.
yeah, he was my favourite part of that run, which sadly got cancelled before its time. But yeah, I mean, for nothing else, I think it's worth checking out for the Sanford green pencils and colors by I don't even know how to say that name. Luffridge.
Oh yeah, Luffridge, yeah. It's pretty weird, humorous book. Are you collecting Luke Cage or Iron Fist currently, Connor?
I am collecting the heck out of Iron Fist. I'm absolutely adoring that. It probably has some of my favourite art on the stands at the moment. The fight scenes are beyond amazing, but I haven't checked out Luke Cage.
Okay, I couldn't agree with you more. Iron Fist is just really hitting it out of the park for me. I think it's one of the top Marvel titles that I'm currently getting as well. I highly recommend it. I would suggest that goes on this list as well. If you want to watch Netflix, get a good sense of the martial arts and aspect of Iron Fist, then definitely pick that up. Luke Cage is good as well. Look, maybe I'm a bit biased, but I don't mind it actually. The art is a lot more simple, a lot more stylized, but the story is interesting. It goes into, just briefly, Dr. Bernstein and how Luke isn't the only experiment that he had worked on. So there are other kind of bulletproof skinned people around.
That's actually,
so it's definitely worth checking out as well. I'd say those two. So those were the comics, I guess, that they recommended for the Defenders series. And the other thing that we had posted as a bit of news was a YouTube clip called Top 10 Things We Want to See in the Defenders. Now, did you have a chance to have a look at this, Connor?
I have not, but I do know what number 3 is, and that's our boy Moon Knight.
Yep, that's exactly the only reason why we've kind of added this onto the news is because basically it validates what we want, and that's Moon Knight in the Netflix shows. So as rightly the video goes, it'll be great. Moon Knight will be a great fit for Netflix. He'll bring a different angle, being insane basically, and having that tie-in with almost like the spiritual with Khonshu as well. So it's a great list. We'll put it in the show notes. There are top 10 things that we want to see on the Defenders, ranging from number 10 Sigourney Weaver as an enemy, who I'd think would be really great. We still don't know much about her. Have you read up?
Yeah, which is probably the most exciting part.
Like, apparently she gets her hands dirty as well, so I just can't wait to see that, because she kind of, every time you see her, at the moment, she looks very calm and cool and collected, well dressed. So if she's tackling 4 street level heroes, I just love to see what she can do. Number 9's also Claire taking on a bigger role, which in Iron Fist, a lot of people were saying she tended to be a little annoying in that season. Did you pick that up, Connor?
I felt the first episode she was a little shoehorned in, but I think she was fairly integral to that plot. Like, I don't think annoying, more of a...
Yeah.
Maybe you could make an argument for plot device, but
yeah,
I think she's great all round in whatever she's in.
Yeah, I think she's great. I think the problem was that it was the fourth different series that she turned up in again, and there was that question of, well, she knows Daredevil, Jessica Jones, and Luke Cage. Why doesn't she tell Iron Fist about them, or kind of get them to help Iron Fist out by the time we see her in Iron Fist? So there was a little slack her way in that sense, but she's definitely a plot device, yeah, and like she's definitely an Agent Coulson or a Nick Fury, I guess, for the Defenders world. The other thing we want to see is the Iron Fist costume. Do you reckon that will? Do you think we'll see that, Connor? I'm not too sure.
No, I don't think so.
Yeah,
but they'll probably be. I'm guessing they're probably saving that for the big Iron Fist season 2. That's the one.
Well,
make my mind.
There was a poster which showed him having at least some collars. The high green collars.
It's sort of a costume. I'm not sure whether they'll go further than that. Yes.
Yeah, so it's starting to lean towards it. I just can't wait to see him to put the the mask on, and I reckon there'll be some connection between that and Daredevil's original mask, or maybe Matt suggests it to him or something. Well, actually, I should take that back, because we did see Orson Randall in Iron Fist wearing that already. So,
oh yeah, true.
So maybe he just, it is the Iron Fist costume. The other thing that we want to see from this YouTube thing is what happens to Elektra, which is kind of a given. I think she's got a big role in it. From what I read, she's considered a main cast member, so she's practically in all of the episodes.
Yeah, I feel like maybe she'll even flip-flop to a hero in this coming bit. I'm not sure. Yeah. I think... Yeah, I don't think you can go into that expecting something small out of I totally forget the actor's name who plays Elektra. But just Elektra.
Elodie Young. Yeah. I hope so as well. I think there's a bit of redemption at the end, I'd imagine. That's what I can only see. Like, she being the big bad the whole way and then kind of finding her way back. But I reckon there'll be some sort of tragedy. The next point of what we want to see in the Defenders is the Kingpin. So I don't know about you, Connor, but I think it'd be highly unlikely unless we get the wool pulled over our eyes like in Daredevil Season 2. I don't think Vincent D'Onofrio will be here in it all.
Yeah, I think it's a very similar Punisher situation. I mean, yeah, I think that's kind of just like a wish list, but I don't see him being put in or even kind of important when you've got, Sigourney Weaver beating people up in the streets.
There'd just be not enough room. You got Madame Gao as well, and I don't think there'd be enough room to fit in Kingpin. But look, I'd be happy to see him just fleetingly, if he's somehow maybe a post-credit or something. That would be pretty cool. The next one would be is damage control, and I think again, I don't think we'll really see much of them. They were kind of mentioned in Homecoming, but apart from that,
well, in the comics, they were really comedic. Like the damage control issue was just a bumbling bunch of idiots trying to fix what the heroes had broken. But in Homecoming, we saw them; they were just real bureaucrats, FBI sort of type.
Yeah, it's I don't think we'll really see them unless, of course, you look at the big hole in the ground. Someone's going to have to fix it, so there might be just someone at the end. I don't know. And then number 4, obviously, Daughters of the Dragon. We've discussed. Would love to see them on there.
Yeah, both Simone Missick and Jessica Henwick are already confirmed for Defenders, so they'll both be in there.
Yeah,
I think there's even set photos of them together already.
Love to see them both. I'm still waiting for Misty Knight's bionic arm. I reckon that should be on the list as well. Do you reckon that will be somehow incorporated into the Defenders? Yeah,
well, I thought we were going to get that in bloody Luke Cage, and even looked like it was going to be. So
they teased us, didn't they?
Yeah, that was so weird. But
it was, I think it was definitely a case of we're conscious that you want her to have an arm, but we're not giving it to you just yet. Yeah, I think that's what.
I hope they just troll us all and give us another little tease again, but I'm not thinking unless maybe Sigourney Weaver does it, which would be kind of intense.
There'd be a lot of hand ninjas there with swords that could, I don't know. I know she got her arm blown off in the comics, but she could have it cut off. You never know. So number 3, obviously the big one for us, and the main reason why I've got here Moon Knight. He'll be great to be in the series. Number 2 and number 1, I'm just looking off the list, and I've actually, I think number 2 is Colleen Wing. Oh no, the Punisher. Sorry.
Ooh.
Yeah, the Punisher. Would like to see the Punisher on there.
More likely than Moon Knight, I think.
More likely than Moon Knight, definitely. And the big number 1 was Heroes for Hire. Having some sort of nod towards them, putting themselves out there as heroes for hire, basically, for Iron Fist and Luke Cage. I'd like to see that as well.
Yeah, I mean, I like I said, I think this will be a real status quo jump. I'm guessing there may even be like a heroes for hire sign at the end of episode 8 It's just kind of like, oh, check us out.
Yeah,
You
or
know,
they
like
even
real cliche, like the music or a big monologue playing over us. We see shots of all the different heroes doing different things.
oh, that would be pretty cool. I wouldn't mind that. Oh, and we actually see their office as well. Maybe they have some sort of, Daredevil's got Nelson and Murdoch. Jessica Jones has got Alias Investigations. Maybe they've got a bit of real estate there somewhere at the end with Heroes for Hire.
Just replace take over Jessica Jones' office.
There, easy as. So, loony listeners, that was kind of like our attempt at some news, and how we kind of shoehorned Moon Knight into that. But look, I'm sure everyone listening is excited to see the Defenders. So we are excited as well, and I'll be keeping just one of the eyes open for any Easter eggs available.
Oh yeah. What would you prefer? Do you think? Would you prefer, as little Easter egg, Gina's diner, Jake Lockley in a cab, maybe a shot of Spectacle, or a little bit of a shot of Moon Knight in costume?
Oh, well, Moon Knight in costume I think it'll just bring the house down for everyone, at least in the Into the Night Facebook group, I'm sure. I'd actually like to see. There's a panel, I think, from Power Man and Iron Fist, where Iron Fist gets in to the back seat of a cab. I'd love to see something like that happen, and you just see this guy. He doesn't even have to say much, but if he kind of looks like Jake Lockley, I'd just love to see that. That would just really get the fans going. Like the non-comic fans probably won't pick it up, and that's probably good because it's like a little Easter egg. But I think for those that do follow Moon Knight, I think that would be really good. How about yourself?
Yeah, I think Jake Lockley is in my one. I may even prefer that over the in costume, just the cheeky little shitty mustache and the bad cab and the bad streets.
Yeah, definitely. Well, also as well, I think I mentioned before, there could potentially be Danny Rand again as a billionaire meeting up with a certain Stephen Grant, which would be pretty good.
Never even thought of that.
So yeah, if there are any fundraisers or charity events and you see some billionaires walking around, this is pure speculation, but yeah, I'd be keeping my eye out on a Stephen Grant somewhere.
So yeah, I guess that'll wrap up our little Defenders talk.
Yeah, basically. That's it, loonies. Apologies again. No real big, hard-hitting news facts, but again, we'll keep our ears close to the ground and let you know as soon as we come up with something.
Yeah, like I said, next week... Oh, no, sadly not next week, but the week after is usually solicitations week, so maybe next week we'll finally get the announcement of Moon Knight.
Oh, that'll be great. I think, and it will be a race to who will see it first, I guess, and get post something up as soon as they can. I just can't wait to hear. Look, we've discussed it before in the previous episodes. I think unless they go horribly wrong with the creative team, I'll just be excited to hear the creative team in general for Moon Knight.
And we'll just speculate for yonks then.
Yeah, definitely. So before we actually hit into the main comics that we're going to review today, wanted to just... We did mention last episode about Deadpool kills the Marvel Universe again, and how actually currently, I mean, we're pretty spoilt. Currently, Moon Knight is bandying about, as we speak in the current comic weeks. They've got 3 issues. Is that right? The 3rd issue has just come and gone.
Yeah,
this week, and we have the creative team of Cullen Bunn as the writer, who is no stranger to Moon Knight. Connor, do you want to say the penciler?
All right, let me just pull that up so I can try and attempt it.
Yeah, only because it's not a common name. That's all. I give all the hard ones to Connor.
Well, I mean, I kind of appreciate. I believe it's Dalibor Talgic.
Yeah, that's pretty good, I think.
I'm not sure the A is actually there.
Sorry?
I'm not sure there's another A in there, but I'm pretty sure it's just Talgic.
I see an Italogic. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
It's got, and the Inca we have. Oh, well, the Inca we got Goran Sudzuka, and on colorist Miroslav Vra.
Oh, that's
So-
how you say that.
Well, I don't have no idea.
We'll roll with it. Edit that part out. You sure?
But this is a good series. Like, we won't get into it too much, but just as an overview, 3 issues so far. Connor, if you can give us a 30-second pitch so far.
Oh, yeah. Well, set in another alternate universe similar to the first Deadpool Kills the Marvel Universe by Bun. Deadpool is jumping around with his what appears to be the Uncanny Avengers from the most recent Gary Duggan run. When from Murdoch from AIM, he hears a specific phrase that turns the pages colourful and sends him on a fun spree against a bunch of enemies until it's revealed, dun dun dun, that he's killed all his teammates. And the basic setup is these murders have been going on for a while now. No one knows who it is, so a crack team of everyone's favourite Kate Bishop, Cable, Punisher, Jessica Jones, Misty Knight, and Mr. Knight
Yes.
are there to track down Deadpool and whatever's going on in his head with these code words.
Yeah, this is pretty Mr. Knight is pretty kick-ass in this, I must say. Having quickly read issues 1, 2, and 3, and at the same time, it's got the advisory, like the warning at the front, so it's quite violent.
It gets
and there's-
colourfully creative with the way it kills everyone.
Yeah, and it just doesn't stop. Like it immediately you get the likes of all the Spider people, you get Gambit and the X-Men. They all just get wasted pretty quickly. So Deadpool's proving to be quite the killing machine here. But I really do love Mr. Knight in this. He's got this sense of, obviously he's in this white suit, and he's got this sense of he's cool, calm, and collected. But in issue 3, Connor, I don't know if you thought the same thing, but he just kicks ass in that.
Yeah, well, I mean, even in the first issue, he's the one that's not only clear, calm, but picks up the clues that it's possibly Deadpool. And then the second issue picks up that it may be a code word, not Deadpool, and just leads everyone in the right direction. You know,
Yeah,
he is the team.
He's
the hero.
definitely the most active one in that detective group. I mean, Cable's trying a bit. Punisher actually has a bit of a role in it, but Mr. Knight seems to be actually leading them all. So that's pretty cool to see our boy leading the charge there. But issue 3, look, far out. He tangles with Deadpool, and he actually gives him a run for his money. You don't actually see him cark it. Do you reckon he died, or he probably did? I mean, he kills everyone,
probably.
doesn't
But this is Bunny. He's a big lover of Moon Knight. He's written him before, and the solicitation for issue 5 is guess how this story is going to end. I dare you. So I don't think anything can be short in this comic.
he? Ah.
And
Well-
just to go back a bit, I love the classic playoff of Punisher and Moon Knight going at it.
Yeah, it's pretty funny. No one wants to. They decide to split up, and the detectives. No one wants to go with the Punisher. So everyone kind of teams up with someone, and that actually just leaves the crazy one, Mr. Knight, and the Punisher together. So they're kind of stuck together. But yeah, I love their dynamic as well. There's less of a military connection, which we've seen in the 90s that they have, which kind of brings them together. But it's more. I'm not sure actually. Frank's pretty quiet in this series. It's just more of that they're thrown in together.
Yeah, he's a bit angry. That's kind of his character. I mean, a lot of this is, since it's an alternate universe tale, it's really just a lot of fun. All the sort of main character types get played up for a really dark sense of humor. It's a lot of fun. And Punisher, I think Punisher is probably the most rife for jokes when it comes down to dark humor.
Yeah, he's definitely. I mean, he's not even a team player, so he's kind of amongst these other detectives, and you can just tell he just wants to get the job done, go there and kill Deadpool, while the others are kind of like looking. And even in the third issue, Moon Knight, when he's fighting Deadpool, he's actually not trying to kill him. Yeah, he's just trying to kind of subdue him. So the Punisher, just wants to end it all, whereas Moon Knight or Mr. Knight wants something else. But yeah, a really fun series. So would you recommend this one, Connor?
Oh, I'd absolutely recommend this. I think you know what you're going to get with this book. You've either read the last one or you just sort of look at that, front cover and the title, and you know what this book is going to be about.
Yeah.
And I think it just takes that dynamic and just runs with it. Colin Bunn. It's so much fun here. It's just totally enjoyable, and the art is incredible. Look,
the artist's name again.
Yeah, Talajic
Nice.
is just incredible. He jumps through so many different styles inside of Deadpool's crazy mind. You're looking at about 5 different art styles by him, very distinct and different art styles.
Oh yes, that's right. It's a good point, because you actually go through Deadpool's mind, right, and the reality, and he definitely sees things differently, and Talajic manages to kind of show that. He's kind of like a one-man band, whereas in the second arc of Moon Knight, Lemire, you know how they employed 3-4 artists to do different personalities of Moon Knight. We've got Talajic here just doing it all himself. I love also seeing Gwenpool as well. Yeah, I'm not a fan of her comic. I mean, I haven't read any of it, but just the fact that it's another kind of Deadpool going up against Deadpool, so I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah, we won't want to spoil too much else because it is currently on running and ongoing. Yeah. People love it, but I think if you haven't picked up the first issue, this is going to make a perfect 5-issue trade. Just fun, really.
Yeah, only 2 more issues to go, so it's nice and bite-sized, and definitely worth it. Okay, so I think we're going to dive into the 2 comics that we've listed for review this episode. We're going to just spin it around a little, being only episode 2. Connor and I have just talked about, just playing fast and loose and seeing what format works. So first of all, we'll be tackling the Marvel Team Up Annual number 4, because it has that Defenders feel to it. So we'll be doing that first, and then that will be followed by issue 2 of Lemire's Moon Knight. Now, just a point of difference from episode 1, we won't be kind of reviewing panel by panel. We may well go back to it, depending on what we find more interesting. We'll just do a kind of like a pitch as to what the comic's about, and just I like to call them our main aspects to the comic. And we'll rate each comic at the end. So I reckon to start off, let's go to look at Marvel Team Up Annual number 4. So, Conman,
you want me to give a bit of a pitch?
Oh, okay, actually, just before the pitch, yeah, right, sorry. So this was released in August 1981. It's called Power Play, the story, and we have writer Frank Miller, who's everyone knows.
I think just as a point, this was pre-Daredevil days, before he was actually known as a really sort of heavy-hitting, violent writer. This was when he had a very sort of fun and laissez-faire Spider-Man run.
That would actually make sense. I didn't consider that, but yeah, where it falls into his classic Daredevil run, yeah, okay, I can see that, because Daredevil's quite light-hearted in this issue. So good pick up there, Connor. We also have Herb Trimp on pencils, with Mike Esposito on inks, and George Roussos on colours. So before we go into that, Connor, before we go into the pitch, the cover, what do you reckon?
I love this cover. I think it's a real classic. I don't know anyone who actually worked on this book outside of Frank Miller, but yeah, I love I feel like it's a very sort of... I think this cover is actually kind of famous because there's a lot of parodies of this. The big purple man head and the hero sort of almost gravitationally pulled into orbit around his head. And
it's also, as well, I do believe, one of the legacy covers. I think it's the Jessica Jones one. It actually pays homage to this cover. So this cover must have generated a lot of interest back in the day, and it's now like one of the classic covers. So Connor, the pitch for this story, what have we got?
All right, what do we got? Well, the Purple Man is back with a new lease on life and a bit of gentlemanly suave, a nice purple suit. His plan to leave the life of crime, however, behind him after the recent tussle with Daredevil, however, goes awry when an altercation in the driving lane leaves him losing Kingpin's heroin. It was millions of dollars worth of heroin from one of his lackeys. So, Kingpin, somehow immune to the abilities of the Purple Man, never explained, wants his dues for his losses. Oh, it is?
It does pop up a bit later, but anyway, sorry, go on.
Wants his dues for his losses and uses Killgrave in an attempt to kill Daredevil, Moon Knight, Spider-Man, Iron Fist, and Power Man through Purple Man's hypnotic powers. Kind of fails. It's a good time.
Yeah, it's a bit of it's a nice fun read, similar to the last episode what we did, Marvel preview. Again, we're looking late 70s, early 80s for this comic, so a different sort of storytelling. It has none of that darkness which usually comes, you see these days with street level characters, but still, by all means, it's quite enjoyable. One of the main aspects I thought I took from this was Moon Knight being still seen as quite the outsider.
Yeah, I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean, he's definitely, everyone seems to know everyone. There's definitely a camaraderie between Spider-Man and Daredevil, and Power Man and Iron Fist obviously are well suited together, but there's a level of mistrust with Moon Knight, I find. So he's definitely like the lone wolf, and I found that quite interesting. And again, from what we talked about previously, this was in 1981, so it's only a year after Moon Knight got his own series. So I think he hasn't really been introduced much to the rest of the universe.
Yeah, but I think there is that difference of when he made appearances before the Muntron started, which was kind of annoyed about how people sort of misinterpret him as a more fun character. I think this one, like, as much as it isn't that sort of gritty or darkness, it still gets him right, at least as an outsider.
It certainly does. And what I really like about it as well is that you could argue that ultimately he's the one that really saves the day at the end.
Yeah, he gives a big swing of the fist.
Swing of the fist, and Daredevil's in trouble. Daredevil's under the spell of the Purple Man, but Moon Knight manages to sneakily avoid the Purple Man's power, and basically he saves the day at the end. So I thought that was really cool. Do you have a good point or an aspect there, Connor?
I think my main aspect was sort of on the camaraderie of this issue. I just found all the characters actually played off fairly well. Like, this is probably the most surprising thing, is Frank Miller at this time sort of understood all of these characters and was able to make them work in a big team up of 5 characters. There was a lot of interplay with Moon Knight and Daredevil both actually sort of being outsiders. Like, Daredevil was still seen as like the horn head at the side, and then you obviously have the Power Man Iron Fist play, but Spider-Man sort of hooks up with them at the end for the big climactic battle. They're swinging off into the streets.
Yeah, a lot of web usage there, and is still kind of throwing witty remarks. So it's very classic Spider-Man, which is great to see. I agree as well. I think Miller's kind of similar to Bendis in the way, in that he has a good grasp of each of the characters, and I'm not sure if Miller had any. He doesn't really have any play with Moon Knight or a Power Man Iron Fist, but he seems to understand Daredevil and Spider-Man really well. So I think that really works for him.
Yeah, and he has a lot of fun with these characters too. All of them have at least one joke made about them. Like, whether it's Moon Knight sort of drifting in and out of the shadows of this Figaro's Playboy persona, and then there's a lot of laughs made up at the fact of Iron Fist looking for like proper representation of the kung fu inside of like a fun movie that he and Luke Cage saw. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it is pretty fun. It's a good explanation of the characters, and they've got, what I like about it is that they've got their kind of branded logo. It's like there's a little introduction to each of them. So it's kind of like, okay, we've got this annual, here's a team up. Here's obviously Spider-Man, he's on the first panel, but you got these guest stars, and whenever they're first seen, you see their kind of logo hit, and it's, just a nice touch, I think. Sorry?
One of the points I will make is it's very narration light. At a time even when all the other runs were still using big amounts of narration, even in the first Moon Knight run, this was fairly light. It was kind of well told through the art.
Yeah.
That narration slide a bit. It was made a lot more enjoyable. I mean, still plenty of text. It's the 80s, but.
Oh, but compared to, as you're saying, like other previous issues of the time, it lets the art speak a lot for itself, and it's which you see now these days. It's not as text heavy, but this was definitely an easy read. I found you weren't bogged too much in text, and the visuals were quite enjoyable, I think. So one of the other aspects I had was. It's kind of like a little bit of a goof almost, or a continuity thing. Was Moon Knight's powers? There was this one thing where he's kind of introduced and he's spying on this pigeon breeder, and for some reason he knows that there's a sniper, hundreds of meters away, and he throws a crescent dart at him. And the sniper says, if I'm just going to pull up this page. The sniper says, "How did you know he didn't make a sound?" And the Moon Knight says, "My methods are beyond your understanding, sniper." So, I don't know, there's a bit of a supernatural thing there. It's not really explained. What do you make of that?
Yeah, no, I was the same sort of thing. It was obviously like, people were still undecided about whether he was supernatural or not.
It maybe it had something to do with him being bitten by a werewolf, but actually by that stage, and I think the Moon Knight continuity previous was very muddled, but by 1981 Monch had established the Khonshu aspect to him, and there was very little to talk about him having any other powers of perception.
Yeah, there's even a scene here of him sort of like leaping off a building.
Yeah, like Superman. It's just neatly jumping off. So I found that there was a bit of a continuity thing there with Moon Knight's powers for this. So maybe Frank Miller, a bit of creative license. Just look, I don't know his powers. I'm just going to suggest that he knows things. So I found that quite interesting. Yeah,
well, I think if I may jump to my next aspect and go back to probably maybe even my favourite part of this outside of our Moon Knight is the villains here.
The two big hitters.
Yeah, Kingpin and the Purple Man. The Purple Man here, interesting. Probably my favourite part is his try to give up the life of crime by I think it was said he was beaten and supposedly drowned in rifles.
Yeah, but I think, however he got his powers, it kind of made him resilient, not as a bit more resilient than a normal human, and he survived that. But then he's just kind of walking around. He's just doing his thing, isn't he? He's just controlling things willy-nilly. He's if anything, it has a nice tie to the David Tennant version of Purple Man, in that he's very bored. Like the idea of you can do, and you can ask people to do anything you want. You can have whatever you want. It's actually inevitably not that fulfilling.
And I love the David Tennant. Well, obviously it's the best version of the character, and what we saw in Alias, him a very creepy and gross character. But I did love the very stupid looking go swing on a pole Spider-Man, and him in a dumb purple suit running around just kind of trying to enjoy life again.
He's a bit of a loose cannon as well. I like the there's also that scene where he kind of absconds that horse and carriage, and he just picks up that woman and he tries to basically, it doesn't seduce her, he tells her to kiss him, but at that stage, before anything goes any further, he goes, we'll get out of the cab, so I'm not interested anymore.
Terrible kisser.
So he definitely has this amazing power, and that was actually one of my aspects as well. is a very big difference from, again, the Netflix version of Purple Man. It doesn't seem to be pheromones that he's secreting to control. It's more his actual voice. So that is actually quite crucial in the story of how he's actually inevitably defeated. But it's also how, to go back to your question about Kingpin, how he actually manages to not follow Purple Man's orders. He has those earplugs in there.
Yeah, but you can't actually hear anything through those earplugs. I don't think so. Unless you can. I don't know.
Well, actually, yeah. Later on, Moon Knight said he couldn't. So it's kind of up in the air. Maybe another little goof there, a bit of an inconsistency there in Frank Miller. But yeah, definitely what happens at the end, we find, as we mentioned before, Moon Knight saves the day by basically stealing these earplugs from one of the henchmen and putting them on, and being able to then just walk straight up to Kilgrave and just bop him one.
Yeah. Reason. Oh, I love the obliterator.
Yes. Yeah, it's a very comic booky name, isn't it? The Obliterator Cane. That's pretty cool. But I didn't notice that at first. I thought he just took out a rifle. But it's his actual walking cane, isn't it?
Yeah.
Other than that, for other points, well, we have, like, historically, for looking at chronology as well, Daredevil does mention that he had locked horns with Purple Man before, and that was in issue 154 of Daredevil. And for some reason, he was able to, again, avert Purple Man's suggestions. I haven't got that issue. I don't know if you have, Connor, as well, but I'm not sure how we did that.
Yeah. Well, it's actually, Purple Man was originally a Daredevil villain that first appeared in issue 6 of Daredevil. He was, I think that was the issue where he first got his red suit as well. And
okay.
Yeah, or it was like the final issue where he decided to ditch the yellow one. But yeah, it's always been their first encounters, that because Daredevil had heightened senses, because it was just about the Purple Man's voice, he could, had such control of his senses that he could.
Oh, okay.
The hearing his voice didn't do much effect until later in this issue said, like, his powers is doubled. Yep. Daredevil. Listen to me, you idiot.
Yeah, and he's was it because he was using the microphone as well? He said it was amplified or something.
Yeah, that was another thing, and how it went through, like, the TV into the outside world.
I much prefer what they came up with on Netflix. Actually, I do like that whole pheromones thing, and how they kind of enclosed him in that. What's the name of the? What's the name of the room? That room that basically the listeners will probably be knowing. They probably know what I'm talking about.
In Jessica Jones, sorry, yeah.
Yeah, sorry, in Jessica Jones, where he's in that room which you can't hear him or nothing can go in or out. I much prefer the pheromones being the explanation. Sure. Yeah, because the voice thing, it's a bit too loose. But again, in the 1980s, that was probably enough to get people to suspend their disbelief. Any other points there, Connor?
I think I just kind of want to talk about the final battle. I love where at the end, after all this big setup and Purple Man's trying to avoiding a life of crime, he gives a big superhero speech that just leads with some cute little what's the word, like soundproof
soundproofing. Yes.
Just Moon Knight gives him a big whack on the back of the head.
Yes, very very simple way to end it all. Just the big there we go, the old whack, and he's down for the count. That's all we needed. Why couldn't he have thrown a truncheon or a present dart at the beginning, or Spider-Man having shot a globule of web at him to knock him out? But then again, I guess we wouldn't get 30 pages. But yeah, it's a lot of fun. And at the end as well, Spidey and Luke Cage and Iron Fist, they all kind of showcase their powers, which I think is what the readers want. Back in the day as well, with this team up, you see Luke Cage with his immense strength, and his bulletproof skin. You see Spidey obviously doing his thing with the webs and jumping and swinging, but you also Iron Fist gets a chance as well to show off his Iron Fist where he smashes that water tower.
Yeah, the very such. So he resorts to a power he alone possesses as he summons his chi. And
Yes.
yeah, and he's trying to find the total concentration to determine the point of greatest stress in the water tower's structure. I kind of love that part. I love Spider-Man, Iron Fist, and Power Man banter. It's probably my favorite part of the issue, honestly. Except at the page after Moon Knight gives him a walk, there's a very weirdly distorted version of Spider-Man. Would you agree?
Yeah, he's his head looks like a balloon. Basically, it's like one of those parades where big floaty. But Herb Trimp, a fantastic artist. I can't deny he's really good. But something it's almost just like a massive close up, isn't it?
I do love going back to his art, the actual use of shadows on Moon Knight and giving him that visual language was really cool. Really well done, actually. If any of you loony listeners are reading through the issue as we hear or going to read after.
It's actually a bit of a hard one to find, Connor. I didn't see it on Marvel Unlimited. I'd imagine you just have to try and track it down either digitally on Comixology or Amazon. Otherwise, I'm assuming it might be in a collection. For Marvel team-ups.
Let me look up the. I don't think there would be like a team-up.
It's a difficult one because it's really a title that doesn't really belong to anyone. It would probably be Spider-Man, if anything.
His is the big bold letters.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not even in the Epic collection, is it?
No. So it might be in the Essential collection, which is a black and white version. So you might be able to track it down there. Even there, kind of a bit hard to find these days. But it's definitely an issue worth investigating if you can come across it somehow. So we'll just leave it at that. I've got a digital copy, but we'll just leave it at that.
Comixology. Oh, you can pick it up in the collected edition called the Luke Cage Avenger, or you can just buy it for $2 on Comixology.
Oh, okay, perfect. Well, there you go, listeners.
That's how
on Comixology.
Comixology,
Yeah, track it down. Definitely worth it. And if you're a Moon Knight fan, you've got no excuse. He's in there.
Well, Ray, I believe we're both on the same page here with our little review, our little final scores.
Yes, the scores. I would give it. Look, out of I'll go for Crescent Darts. Might as well. Out of 5 Crescent Darts, I'd give it. I'll give it about 3.
Yeah, no, me too, for sure.
Yeah, it's not. Look, it's not a standout. It's not like it doesn't blow your socks off, but it is an enjoyable issue, and it's definitely a thing of the 80s as well. So if you take that in consideration, it's fun. What else? What better way to see all your favourite heroes together?
Yeah, I mean, I'm going with 3 out of 5 Crescent Darts for the same reason. If you never read this issue in your life, I don't think you'll be missing out on anything important. But I think it is pretty well for Marge, because I suppose it would have been pretty exciting to read at the time Spider-Man, Moon Knight, Iron Fist, Power Man, Daredevil, all in one comic. So
Frank Miller does really well to juggle all of them. That's a big cast you're looking at. And you've got J. Jonah Jameson in there as well. You've got Kingpin. There's a lot of characters there to juggle. Sorry, one thing I forgot to mention, one of my favourite things was, and I wonder if he's actually ever turns up, was Kingpin's assassin. Later on, he has an awesome name. It's Heinrich von Schninkelschnapp. He's a guy with a white beard that tries to kill Purple Man.
Does he appear in anything else?
I don't know. We'll have to look that up. Loony listeners, if you are a fan of Heinrich von Schninkelschnapp, or if you have a page dedicated to him, please let us know, because I just want to know what happens to the dude. He's pretty badass, but he doesn't do much in the end.
I will. I think I'll end this review with a quote from Spider-Man.
Hmm.
Look, Jameson, I just saved this town, and I'll go on saving it. And you'll go on filling your papers with lies about me, and every once in a while, I'll get the crazy urge to rip your arms off. There's no relevance. I just like it a lot.
I didn't realise you're so violent. He's taking a few lessons from Mooney.
So I think Spider-Man is when it comes down to it.
Sorry?
I think Spider-Man is when it comes down to it.
He's violent.
Oh, learning from Moon Knight with the violence.
Oh, yes.
Ripping arms off.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, for sure. Very impressionable young gentleman, as Daredevil calls him, or son. He refers to him. Yeah, listen here, son. Take care of yourself. Okay, so we that's kind of it for our Defenders coverage. We are now going to press on to issue 2 of Jeff Lemire's Moon Knight run. So, yeah.
Continually written by Lemire, with art still by Smallwood and colours by Belair, letters by VC's Corey Petit. And I think I'll pass it over to you for a little pitch for issue 2.
Yep, okay. Sorry, so just released May 4th, 2016. And as a pitch, look, I've tried to make it as brief as possible. The way I see it, moving on from our previous episode, our previous issue, basically what we see is Mark Spector coming to grips with what he's kind of discovered from issue 1, and basically how there is another world behind the world he sees, and him accepting that. And what I find is that there are almost three distinct acts to this. So the pitch is basically planning a breakout, introduction to some new characters. There's also a further development of Khonshu and what he is, and then it ends with the motley crew actually escaping the mental institution. So that's it in basically a nutshell. What would be one of your main aspects for this, Connor?
Well, I think the most important aspects, in referring to our big man Khonshu, we find out that Khonshu is not only not of this world as a god, but not of this world as a being. We learn about something called the Overvoid, being beaten and electrocuted in a classic exclamation mark page by Billy and Bobby. He is returned to a very annoyed, very agitated Khonshu, as we find that Mark has been in this asylum for quite a while, and this asylum is in a place called the Other Void, collection, this sort of realm outside of realms that contains the what would be known as the Egyptian gods that Khonshu refers to as simple pawns at one point.
I think this is I think Lemire has done really well with this. I think he's really explored and given a new twist to Khonshu. I mean, what we usually refer to Khonshu as just being basically an Egyptian god or a deity. But basically what I found really interesting was that these deities are basically just from another reality, and they just influence particular people. So not only Mark Spector, but they influence people from across the cosmos, or from across the reality that they come from, and they use this influence to control people, and I find that quite interesting, actually.
Yeah, and we find they do that because they're actually trapped in the other world.
Yeah.
But,
this I put it as the kind of second act. Much of the comic is taken to an explanation of this. So you got about 6 pages of it, just an explanation of where Khonshu comes from, and actually it kind of brings to light a bit more as to how, what is happening with Mark, actually. So what we get is more of an explanation about Khonshu, and this kind of validates Mark a little more in the fact that he's not entirely crazy. But I love the art in this again. Actually, the most colour you get is there's a little page there with what looks like the pyramid just floating in space, and Belair does this awesome thing with cosmic greens, blues, and reds in there as well.
Yeah, and we see like a visual language continued from the previous issue of that real sketchy sort of very
yeah, definitely.
what's it, graphite sort of drawing.
Yeah, I think so. It's like almost smudged as well.
Yeah, of him talking with Conchu inside his head, and then it's just this gorgeous, very, very sort of stated, flowing colors of space that surrounds the other void. Well, I'm never going to get that.
That's quite confusing, actually, but but it is very interesting, and I like how Lemire has explored this aspect of it. Very, very interesting as well. Look, that was one of my aspects as well, Connor. It was Conchu's origin, which I think is one of the highlights of this issue, actually, because what you get around that is basically Mark and his supporting cast just trying to break out of the mental institution. One of my other big points, I'll just jump to it actually, and what really kind of spun me out with this issue, is that towards the end, as they're actually leaving the institution and they're going down into the train station, is that you have the likes of Crawley and Gina and Frenchie actually seeing the same thing that Mark sees as well. And I found that, I just thought in my head, that was very disconcerting, because for issue 1 and for the first half of this, you kind of think, okay, that's all in Mark's head. But when the others see it as well, and it ends with it as well, you have the zombies, the mummies come out, and they obviously see it too. You're kind of questioning, okay, hang on, so what is real and what isn't? It just really confuses you even more in a good way.
Yeah, I mean, this first arc is a whole 5 issues, and I don't think even beyond this arc, the questions never stop coming until possibly the last 2 issues of this series.
Definitely. Yeah, we won't. I mean, if you haven't read it as well, we won't give it away. But it really does. It does leave you hanging up until the very end. Anyway, I just found that a really good twist that Lemire brings in, because at this point, I remember the first time I read it, going, "Oh my gosh, that's not even. If they can see it, like, what are we really in this world then?" And that's. I think that was brilliant. Any other aspects there, Connor?
I think outside of Conchu, this issue was, even just as an issue 2, is very important for the fact that Mark becomes very assured of himself. He's starting to realize that through Conchu, well, even before we see him interacting with Conchu for the first time in this issue, Mark assured he's not crazy, and this is some freak of nature. He's calling the Dr. Emmett out for being the the Egyptian god of Amut.
Yeah.
And
yeah. And he's got that crazy look, his bloodshot eyes, and he's a bit of a sneer. He's saying, "Look, I'll be coming for you, Amut," as well. It's really good. He also, as well, one of the other big things I see is the introduction to Frenchie. So, Jeff Lemire, prior in issue 1, you got to see a bit of Marlene, Gina, and obviously Crawley. And to round it out, we now have Frenchie, who, similar to Crawley, actually believes Mark 100% as well, and gives him his suit and helps him escape. So there's a bit of a question there as well. Crawley explains that he knows that something's wrong because he's done a lot of drugs as well, and it's kind of opened his eyes to it. That's how he explains it to Mark. I wonder how then Frenchie believes all this as well. Maybe he's spoken to Crawley, or maybe
he's also done a lot of drugs.
Maybe he's done a lot of drugs as well. I found that quite interesting as well. And Frenchie has a striking resemblance to a French actor, Vincent Cassel. Did you pick that up?
No, I don't even know who that is, admittedly.
Oh, okay, okay. Well, for any movie buffs or cinephiles out there, and it becomes more apparent later on in the series as well, I think Greg Smallwood has definitely fashioned Frenchie after one of France's A-list actors, Vincent Cassel, or Cassel. I'm not sure how you pronounce it. But yeah, this is generally, apart from the Khonshu bit, this is generally an escape story, and it's basically Mark. There's a really brilliant splash here of him finally suiting up.
Oh, it's
and he basically says, "We're on the clock, people. Let's rock." That's just brilliant. He's ready to roll.
And I love the "That's my boy" from Khonshu.
Yes. So Khonshu is definitely kind of there, still kind of guiding him. Marlene is still, I found interesting, she's still kind of out of it. Like, when everyone else is kind of up and about, would there be any symbolism there, kind of, you reckon? From what we know so far, I mean, not in hindsight, but would there be any reason why she's not active?
I feel like, what is it, Crawley says that she's been drugged more heavily than anyone else. I think it's to keep her away from Mark and not let her have a glimmer of hope in her.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so maybe that was it, just to make sure that she doesn't, successfully team up with Mark. Maybe she's a bit of a troublemaker as well. Little did they know that Crawley is just as capable of pulling off an escape. But this was generally a really good series, I think. What would you give this a rating?
Oh, I mean, there's just so much to be said about the story we've gone over and just how much the artwork's here. Everything about the last issue's colours and panels and setups. We went very in depth last issue. Just comes back here.
Yeah, it's very consistent.
And just how they repeat that thematically, and we see the world changing to that dystopian sand-brushed version with some zombies at the end.
Yeah, which that was really unexpected. I remember reading this first because I'd never associated. Funnily enough, although it being Egyptian, I'd never associated like mummies or zombies with Mark or Moon Knight. But again, it's a nice little pick-up from Lemire, I think, of adding that in there, and it's just a totally kind of comes out of left field for you. So exactly as you say, I think it's the consistencies are there. There are things which are there from last issue layout wise, like the circles which magnify the shot, also the exclamation mark in the electrocution or the shock therapy stage.
Exclamation mark spectrum on that, kid.
Yeah. And also the level of detail of the backgrounds. I can't say enough about that.
But yeah, for this issue, I mean, my immediate jump for this entire series is 5 out of 5 Crescent Darts. But I mean, to give it to maybe be a bit more special, I don't know. Maybe like this is kind of the big sort of setup for the next 3 issues to come, and obviously leading up to a big fight scene. So, you know what? Maybe 4.5 Crescent Darts, but basically 5. I mean, this is a flawless comic from issue to issue.
Yep.
Just no going wrong.
Yeah. I'm the same with you. I'd give it like 5 as well. We can break the rules, Connor. I reckon if we get even a better issue after this, I'm just going to go 6 out of 5, 7 out of 5. Yeah, exactly. But this is a really good issue. It just keeps you involved and keeps you interested. There are no bits that lag, I find. If you compare it to the first issue, I would probably give the first issue a bit more. So I'd give it, 5.5 out of 5 Crescent Darts, and I'd give this one 5 out of 5. Lemire's just really paced this really well, and you can tell there's been a lot of thought in how he reveals information slowly.
I love just on that point, I love the setup of this. Every issue in this run, despite it's a big, long-running narrative, always has its introduction, its complication, and its climax. And the issue where you first see him suit up as Mr. Knight, that could have almost been the end. It builds up to the climax, but you see that and it keeps on going, and then you get another big cliffhanger at the end. And it's just snappy.
And by saying that, actually, as well, you've revealed that Lemire he doesn't work with formulas, so it's not predictable in any sense. You can't just go, okay, that's it. Okay, this is going to happen. I bet this happens. As you mentioned, he has something that looks like the big reveal at the end, but he keeps on going, and he keeps that interest up, and I think that's very sign of a really good writer, actually. And I just love how he fleshed out Khonshu, basically. I find that really, if you compare it with the earlier stories and how we kind of described in the history and overview of Moon Knight what Monch had intended for Khonshu, this just adds another layer totally as well. I would be really keen to see what comes of the Other Void and the Over Void, like later on.
Anyone who's new to reading this alongside us, those two things and Khonshu get a very big, beginning, drawing out. Crazy.
Yeah, it's very good indeed. All right, well, that pretty much wraps up that review of Moon Knight issue 2. A very good issue, so go get it if you can. It's available, readily available on Marvel Unlimited. It's available on single issues. It's currently in a Volume 1 trade of Lemire's works. Also Comixology as well. And am I missing anything else?
No, I think that's about
that's
it.
Isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, so, definitely check it out. Next week, what do we have, Mr. Connor?
We have Lemire, issue 3.
Mm-hmm.
And then our other issue I may have forgotten.
The other issue, we haven't actually set yet. So keep an eye out on our Facebook page and or Twitter.
We got a question from the audience this week, actually, about a sort of reading list recommendation for newcoming Looney readers. But we may even possibly leave that to flesh out, maybe even next week.
Okay, yeah, that sounds good. We'll come up with, I know, as we mentioned in the overview, there are so many good arcs, but maybe we can give a smattering of, particular issues in general. Yeah. So, okay, well, that's it for this week. You can, as always, catch us on www.intothenightpodcast.wordpress.com. We're also on Facebook, Into the Night, a Moon Knight fan base. Over
100 loony members, loony listeners, getting in amongst there. Some great discussion, art posted all the time.
Oh, definitely, and it's great to see people posting up their art and their thoughts on Moon Knight. I like the one, I think it was by Brian Cherry, who mentioned he had a question, what happened to Frenchie's partner, which is a very good question from the Houston run, because he just disappeared. Actually, he was a very interesting character. But yeah, so keep them coming in, loonies. Very good. We also have a chat room called the Looney Bin. I've posted up a link to that on our Facebook group, so you can now just click onto that and dive right into discussions basically about anything. Mostly Moon Knight, but it can just run off on a tangent anywhere.
You can email us at moonknightpodcast@gmail.com. Send us all feedback or questions. We're happy to hear them or read them on the show or anything. Got our Twitter handle at ITKMoonKnight.
And we're also available on any good podcast catcher like Overcast, TuneIn, which I think we've just been put on. Also Podbean, and SoundCloud, and just a whole heap of others. So check us out if you can, and give us a review. Actually, that would be pretty cool. I've heard other podcasts ask for it, Connor. I don't think we've asked for one yet, but we've got a few out there. But hit us up for a review, and that would be really, really much appreciated. Yeah.
And as always, catch us next week for more loony listening, loony good times. We got Moon Knight coming everywhere. We're number one and only Moon Knight podcast. So if you enjoyed us or first time here, we'll be here every week.
Excellent. And what was that? Do we have a closing statement?
Do we have a closing statement? As you like to say,
yeah.
May Khonshu look after the denizens of the night.
Excellent. Catch you later.
Bye.
Moon Knight and affiliated characters, stories and events are properties of Marvel Characters Incorporated. Materials used and discussed within the podcast are intended for critique and review purposes only under the fair dealing concept of the current Copyright Act. The views, information or opinions expressed during the podcast are solely those of the individuals involved and do not necessarily represent those of the copyright owners.